So today we're gonna talk about human resources. And the reason that we're gonna talk about human resources, even though this is a payroll class, is because the human resource function and the payroll function are very closely integrated. There's a very close relationship between those two departments. And so even though payroll isn't, this isn't a human resources class, and if you're interested in human resources, we do have separate classes for human resources. We do need to find out exactly where payroll fits within that human resources function. Payroll also works very closely with the accounting department. So there's a close relationship. Payroll's kind of integral between a lot of different departments. There's also a close relationship with each and every one of the employees because of what the payroll department does affects all employees. But for our purposes today, we want to take a look at what that human resources function is, just to kind of get an overview and to see where payroll falls into that mix. I did post another, so we got 2 more days to talk about chapter 1 today. We're going to look at, like I said, human resources on next Tuesday. We are going to look more closely at what the payroll department does and some of the record keeping, specifically the record keeping requirements of the payroll department. In particular, we're going to look at, and I had mentioned this early on, these two records that are extremely important. They're used in pretty much everything the payroll department does, the payroll register and the employee earnings record. We're going to start to go through those on Tuesday, okay? And that will complete our coverage of chapter 1. We'll get into a little bit more math after chapter 1. I understand that's why you're here. You like the math, you like the numbers. We will get there, so hang in there. In the meantime, what I would like you to do is go to, let me make that a little bit bigger. We'll go use this again to answer a couple of questions about human resources. There are no wrong answers here. This is just let's see. This just gives an idea of just to kind of get you warmed up. Let's see if I can remember how to get to the. Well, I'm not gonna put the responses up yet because I want you to not be influenced.
Underscores in between our words.
I don't think so in this particular one because it's not a word cloud.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah. show a list. There are 2 questions there, up there. Here. Used to be a way to look at these when people were actually participating. See how I can do that anymore. Can't get to our answers here. Hopefully. Back. How do I get there? Beta. Sorry, folks. Hold on just a second. Well, that doesn't do any good if we can't see the responses. I know we can see the responses. Well, crud. All right, well, I tell you what, you've had a chance to think about it. Let's just talk about it a little bit. Geez, that's annoying. That's not pulling up. Gotta make it. Here we go. Okay, so some of the functions of a human resources department. Work solutions help people. That's good. protect the workers' rights? Control. Employee support and management. Order of safety. Configurations. Communication, oversee, firing and hiring, hire people. It's disclosed to its proper location. Make people feel comfy at work. That's good if you find an HR department that does that. You're working at a good place. Onboarding, benefits administration, workers' comp administration, time and attendance, payroll, workplace safety, pretty much encompasses a lot of it. Making sure it's a positive work environment. Keep human hospitality for others together, help the workers, help employees out, paychecks, ensure the well-being of employees and compliance of all work-related rules and regulations, manage customers or employees' questions and needs relating to their field of work. So lots and lots of variety there in the answers. And yes, indeed, there should be lots of variety because there's lots of variety in the things that the Human Resources Department does. Right? It's not confined to just one thing. Obviously, human resources, even the name connotes the importance of the human capital that contribute to the success of the company. Employees are an asset of the company, and they, just like any other asset, they need to be managed. Unlike other types of assets, though, like vehicles and buildings and machinery, humans have feelings, right? And those feelings can oftentimes get in the way of, they can help to get a job done if they're positive feelings, but they can also hinder any performance as well. So it is a very a delicate job that the Human Resources Department does. So I like to see all of that variety there because they're all true. They are in charge of all of that stuff. So discussing my pay raise. A meeting or discussion about current concerns or topics related to their department that deal with employees or customers. Business planning, okay, collaboration or teamwork, meeting about the work environment, discussing how to solve an issue with an employee, communicating with employees, discussion over work, discussing the financials of a family and their needs, that could be, discussing someone is getting fired. Who's getting fired? They look a little too happy in that picture for people to be getting fired, but you never know. Sometimes people are happy when they get fired. Collaboration, discussion, meeting. So in essence, it's communication and interaction between those workers. Now, it could be any number of things that are going on in those pictures, but the essence of it is that interaction between human beings, and that's at the core of human resources. So that said, here is our agenda for today, and thank you very much for participating in that. I do have a video again to show you. I'm not a human resources professional, so I will use these aids to help to explain some of the specifics of the human resources function. We do have a few slides that we're going to go through that a lot of them kind of reiterate what's in the video. And then I do have an activity for you as well, so you're going to have to put your thinking caps on. We're going to talk about several different responsibilities and duties of the Human Resources Department today. There's a list of them there. And there are some topics that I want you to think about, and you are going to come back and share that information there. I'll go through those when we get to that point. And I will call on you again. I mean, I'll offer volunteers at first, but expect me to call on you. And then we'll do a little exit exercise, and then you'll be off for your Labor Day weekend. Okay? All right, so first up, let's take a look at this video. Oops.
Human resource management is the process through which a company identifies, recruits, hires, positions, and manages its employees. Human resources departments usually formulate, enforce, and oversee the company's HR policies, which control personnel and how the company interacts with its staff. First, let's define HRM. Human resource management is an approach to running a business that views its workforce as its most valuable resource. The term human capital describes a company's workforce value. HRM's primary purpose is to help businesses meet their immediate and long-term objectives by reducing risk and increasing ROI. Nature of a
Everybody know what ROI is? Return on investment. Okay, thank you. Yep.
HRM. Human resource management is founded on guiding concepts and practices that help businesses succeed. HRM is not limited to an organization's single division, but serves as a cross-departmental role that oversees the management of all employees, from entry-level workers to executives. Human resource management revolves around its most valuable asset, its employees. HRM is a field that focuses on helping people both professionally and personally. This facilitates cooperation between members of an organization to realize shared objectives. To keep up with the ever-shifting market and fiercer levels of competition, all production elements must be constantly updated and enhanced. Human resources, too, must be consistently upgraded or replaced to keep up with rising levels of competitiveness. As a result, it's something that goes on all the time. It is an essential component of running a business. It has as its primary goal the maximization of output by employees. It seeks to maximize productivity by focusing on the people who make the organization tick. Scope of HRM. The term human resource management scope describes the full range of HRM-related pursuits. The following describes these pursuits. Human resource planning, also known as HR planning, is a method used by businesses to determine how many open positions there are inside the organization and whether or not there is an abundance or deficiency of available employees. Job analysis is a crucial part of HRM. A job analysis provides an in-depth explanation of each position in the business. The company creates ads and places them in newspapers based on the results of a job study. This is the process of seeking potential employees. Recruitment and selection is a crucial part of human resource management. It involves receiving applications in response to an advertisement, conducting interviews, and ultimately choosing the best candidate for the job. After a candidate pool has been narrowed down, an initiation or orientation session might be held. Aside from its significance, this aspect of HRM is also worth discussing. During this time, employees are also introduced to one another, given a brief history of the company, and given information about the company's culture, values, and work ethics. Each worker participates in a training program designed to improve his work productivity. Existing, highly experienced staff members are also offered training. Refresher courses are designed to do just that. A lot of money is allocated to training and development programs at the organization. After an employee has been on the job for about a year, the HR department will conduct a performance review to evaluate how well they've been doing their job. Pay raises, bonuses, and promotions in the future are all determined by these evaluations. Compensation and other perks are subject to several different sets of regulations. Human Resources oversees salaries and benefits packages. Maintaining a healthy workforce requires a consistent dose of inspiration. The Human Resources Division is responsible for exploring alternative techniques of inspiration. As an aside, health and safety rules must be adhered to for the sake of the staff. Human Resources is also responsible for this. The HRM discipline of keeping cordial connections with union members is also crucial. The corporation will benefit from this since it will reduce the likelihood of strike-related lockouts. Importance of HRM. It's common knowledge that companies' human resources are its most valuable and most troublesome asset to manage. Human resource management's goals include identifying staffing gaps and developing and retaining top talent. It's important to note the breadth of HRM's purview, so it's tough to pin down a single definition, but we can put them in one of the following categories. HRM relates to employee administration, workforce planning, recruiting and selection, development, introduction and orientation, promotion, remuneration, layoff and reduction, and employee output are all examples of direct human resource management. The larger goal here is to measure personal progress and efficiency, both of which have knock-on effects on the growth of the business. HRM's role in employee benefits. This subfield of HRM is concerned with workplace perks and comforts, security assistance, healthcare, welfare benefits, social welfare, and health services are only a few of the many facets of this umbrella term. Appointing safety officers and improving and protecting against unsafe working conditions are also addressed. It is also connected to staff management, guidance and counseling, report building, and training and development. It ensures the well-being of your workforce. It is essential to identify their genuine requirements and work with management to provide for those needs. HRM and workforce development, maintaining internal peace and harmony necessitates tactful engagement with labor or employee unions, hearing out their concerns and finding amicable resolutions to any issues that may arise. It's the study of how to get along with your coworkers and keep the peace in the workplace through collective bargaining, amicable conflict resolution, and other methods of preserving positive employee-employer relationships. How does HRM work? Human resources are effective because of the hard work of HR specialists who study human resource management before hiring. While a single or small team may handle human resources at a small business, a large corporation would have a dedicated HR division complete with a chief people's officer, HR director, and other administrative positions. Similarly, small and medium-sized businesses, SMBs, can rely on HR generalists to oversee all aspects of the employee life cycle, including hiring, payroll, performance reviews, and the creation of corporate rules. In contrast, large companies typically have experts, each taking on a specific task. Each area is separated so that just the correct number of workers may be sent out to meet each requirement. Objectives of HRM. The HR process begins at the top. The successful completion of organizational goals is a primary HRM focus. To succeed, HRM must ensure that all available human resources are used to meet organizational needs and aims. HRM success and goal attainment hinge on two primary considerations: employees and the workplace. Human resource management and organizational effectiveness are primarily defined by workplace culture. Facilitating effective team coordination is a crucial function of human resource management. Enterprise-level teams require simple methods of communication. Specifically, HR needs to ensure a tool is available to help with the integration. Workforce effectiveness and performance are two fundamental factors to focus on to accomplish even the most fundamental goals of any firm. When employers invest in their employees by providing ongoing training and career advancement chances, those workers feel secure in their jobs and more prepared to take on leadership roles. Human resources professionals' primary role is to maintain progress along the desired course. Don't let negative energy or distractions interrupt your focus. This requires constant attention and encouragement from the workers. Where can HR find inspiration to excite their staff? Provide them with abilities. Consider their point of view. Make weekly meetings and decisions inclusive. If they are new, it doesn't matter. Accept them. Never let morale dip. Rewards for employees, such as annual reviews based on performance, can also be beneficial. Human resource managers have many goals and responsibilities, including developing leaders, creating a safe and welcoming workplace, and keeping current staff members. An essential goal of human resource management should be the maintenance of a happy and productive workforce. Compliance and data management for the corporation and its employees are two examples of functional and organizational goals. It's a significant task for HR departments and managers to manage payroll compliances and maintain the organization free of penalties and fines. Skills and responsibilities of an HR manager. The human resources manager oversees the company's hiring practices, payroll, employee benefits, and any efforts related to employee safety in the workplace. The HR manager is responsible for the administration of employee benefit programs, as well as the sourcing, screening, and hiring of new personnel. A human resources manager's job description should emphasize the importance of a candidate with excellent interpersonal, communicative, and collaborative abilities due to the role's emphasis on dealing with people. It's also crucial that they have a thorough familiarity with the most recent trends in the sector about non-monetary perks and complete awareness of the most recent accolades in the field. In this position, education plays a crucial part. Human resources experience is preferred, coupled with at least a bachelor's degree in HR or a related subject such as business. What's with the fancy human resource management title anyway? The term management describes making the most of a company's limited resources to achieve its goals. Therefore, human resource management aims to ensure that the business's existing human resources are used effectively, and that any recruits add value to the organization. The construction industry is the best example of a sector experiencing a severe scarcity of competent laborers. According to analysts, this trend is predicted to triple over the coming generation from its current 30%, negatively affecting the sector's total productivity. Many experts argue that human resources are becoming less important as machines and technology take over more and more tasks. Companies are always looking for talented, knowledgeable, and certified people to ensure the company's continued growth and success. Still, machinery and technology can only be created by humans and require human intervention to function properly. For what reasons should an HRMS be implemented? Human resource management systems are built to cater to HR's fundamental requirements and transform routine administrative tasks into strategic enablers of company value. These data-driven, people-centric tools could help HR professionals do the following: strengthen their procedures for employing new employees, improve your personnel management skills, maximize the efficiency of your personnel, achieve higher levels of employee participation and retention, reduce unnecessary expenditures, use evidence to guide your choices, guarantee conformity with applicable rules and regulations. Cloud transformation. Human resource specialists have risen to prominence in the C-suite because of HR's critical role in ensuring the firm's continued viability, both today and in the future. With improved familiarity with digital and cloud-based technologies, they will be better equipped to make immediate contributions toward the development and upkeep of a highly efficient workplace tomorrow via cloud-based HR management tools. Human resources must upgrade and transform to keep up with the times and meet the needs of the business. A crucial part of HR's change agent role is ensuring the department uses a cloud-based human resource management system, HRMS, to oversee all aspects of the employees' careers. Okay, that's all I have for you folks. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and I hope you find it informative.
Alright. There's a little bit longer because I wanted to slow it down. He's talking so fast. So lots and lots of information there about what human resources does. I just made a list of some of the things that were mentioned in there. So employment planning, so planning for what the needs are going forward for a department. So for example, the accounting department, we see that we're gonna have 2 retirements of staff accountants within our organization. We need to plan for that. We need to make sure not only are we then helping those employees who are going to be exiting to transfer out of the workplace, we're going to be recruiting for and seeking out future employees to take that place. And one of the things that HR would do is analyze, well, do we need 2? Maybe we need 3. Maybe these 2 people are so specialized, or they're so advanced in their skills, they've actually taken on the duties of 3 individuals. So we're gonna need to hire 3 people. But it would be part of HR's responsibility to work with the department to then analyze that and do that future planning. That as well, recruitment and selection of employees. So putting together job descriptions, that's another big, I think the video didn't really specify that, but putting together job descriptions is part of the recruitment process, because in order to recruit employees, you have to know what exactly the job is that those employees are going to need to do, right? So recruitment and selection, orientation, otherwise known as induction and onboarding, especially for, and a lot of these things are really focused on mid to large size companies. When you have a small business, a lot of times many of these things get pushed to the side. The recruiting and selection part, that would not get pushed to the side, but the orientation. If you've ever worked for a small business, and I've worked for small businesses, it's usually trial by fire. You know, you got hired for the job, now go do the job, right? You're not here nodding your head. You've had that experience before as well? Yeah. That's very common for smaller organizations, because they just don't have the manpower to put into all of these different facets. Ongoing training, as well as training new employees in how to perform their jobs. Performance reviews as well. Performance reviews are really important, and oftentimes they don't happen, even at mid and large size companies. But employees want to know how they're performing. They want to know how they're doing, and you know, it's good for those employers to touch base with employees on a regular basis. Compensation and benefits. This is where payroll would come in to providing the administrative end of that. But compensation is very important. Obviously, most of us, if we didn't need the money, we probably wouldn't be working. Most of us, maybe some of us would, or be doing something different. But compensation is extremely important. And determining that compensation as well requires analysis, and HR does assist with doing that analysis, as well as benefits. Are we going to offer health insurance? Are we going to offer other types of perks to our employees? And a lot of that depends on what our competition is doing as well. We want to be able to compete for those top-notch employees. Inspiration, the video mentioned inspiration, inspiring employees to do a better job, or to be loyal to the company and the rest of the workforce. I think that probably a lot of HR departments, at least in my experience, that's kind of where they're lacking a little bit on that. They figure the employees, that's up to the employees to provide their own inspiration for why they continue to show up. Health and safety, as well, making sure that the workplace is safe and that the health of the workers is of utmost importance. Union relations. So we see this less and less these days, but there are still unions out there, and unions, HR will work closely with unions, especially on a lot of these other topics such as training, compensation, health and safety, benefits, and those types of things. And then a big part is also compliance with state and local laws. Within all of those, they've got to be up to date on the state and local laws that are governing their industry. And we talked about some of those laws that they're subject to, some of those federal laws as well that they're subject to. So with that said, I just want to really quick, we've only got a couple of slides to go through here. As I mentioned, so the Human Resources Department and the Payroll Department work very closely with each other. The Payroll Department is going to perform all of those accounting functions. Oftentimes it is under the direct control in those mid to large size companies of the Human Resources Department. It could also be part of the accounting department, right? Like I had mentioned, there's also a very close relationship between payroll and accounting. In the smaller companies, sometimes the one person is going to be doing all of that, right? So if you're working especially in a very small company, you might be performing the payroll function as well as the human resources functions, as well as doing the bookkeeping and the financial statements and all of that stuff. So that's pretty common in those smaller companies. So that's why it's kind of crucial, depending upon where you're gonna go in your career, to be familiar with what human resources involves. Okay. Let's see. The video also went through a lot of these functions of the human resources system, so the recruiting, selecting, orienting, training, and termination of personnel. Now, they didn't really mention the termination of personnel, but that's, that can be kind of a sticky situation, terminating personnel, terminating employees, and both voluntary terminations and involuntary terminations. And it's crucial that that human resources professional that's in charge of that is up to date on their compliance, up to date on all of the rules and regulations surrounding that, because there is a lot of litigation in that area, obviously. And human resources wants to try and minimize any risk for the company of that litigation. So payroll kind of comes into the mix once an employee has been hired, right? So before that point, if you think of the life cycle of an employee, where we start with the recruitment and selection, we probably really start with job descriptions and analyzing the needs, but then we go into recruitment and selection. Once that employee has been hired, unless they're being hired in the payroll department, the payroll department really doesn't become involved until the employee is onboarded, right? And they would be involved in assisting the employee with their filling out certain forms, certain tax forms that we're going to be going through, W-4 forms. They might be involved with some of the I-9 forms, those immigration forms as well. But then getting all of that information entered into the system. They need to gather all of the personal information of the employee, enter it into the computer system, address, the phone numbers, if there are any dependents that the employee is claiming, all of their tax information, and all of that information would then be entered into the system. And then the payroll department is going to continue to have a close relationship with that employee at every step, at every payday, throughout that employee's employment with the company, up until their termination, up until they leave, either through retirement or through voluntary or involuntary termination. So what else do I want to say here? So it's not really until that point that payroll becomes involved, and that's the stuff that you guys are interested in being in this class. So real quick, your book talks a little bit about applications for employment, and the types of things that HR would be involved in. There are a lot of there's a lot of information that cannot be asked in an interview or in an application process. And of course, the Human Resources Department has to be up to date on everything that can and cannot be asked. So pre-hire inquiries, you can ask about gender, national origin, criminal background, but only if there is a bona fide occupational reason to ask that question. Only if it pertains to performing those job duties, right? So, if you're applying to be a attendant at a, I don't know, at a gym, and you're going to be going in and out of the ladies' locker room. Well, then gender becomes an issue there. And that could be something that is that's restricted. National origin, can't really think of an example of when national origin would be, unless there could be language barriers that could fall into play. Criminal background, obviously there are certain occupations where individuals with criminal backgrounds are not allowed to, certain criminal backgrounds are not allowed to hold those positions. Accounting might be one of those, right? If you are, and the payroll department, because you are privy to, employees are privy to such sensitive information, there could certainly be some restrictions on, criminal background checks and things of that nature. This Fair Credit Reporting Act restricts how those criminal background checks can be performed. You can only perform, aptitude and psychological tests, only again if it's related to job performance. So police officers go through psychological and aptitude tests. If you're going to be giving somebody a firearm and sending them out into the public, you want to make sure that that psychologically they are able to handle that in a responsible way. So that would be an example of when a psychological test might be administered. But again, it has to relate to job performance. Drug testing, again, that's kind of a state-by-state issue. A lot of this all comes down to, all those restrictions come down to preventing lawsuits. A lot of the human resources function, and even the payroll function, comes down to preventing lawsuits because they are very costly to any organization. What else do I want to say here? Yeah, and I mentioned that here. So references. Has anybody ever applied for a job and they ask you for a reference? Yeah? And you give them a reference. Do they actually call that reference, do you think? Sometimes, yeah, sometimes they do. Has anybody ever been in a position to give a reference? Somebody calls, yeah? You want to share anything about that? So it can be a really tricky situation, and some organizations will have a policy simply not to give out a positive or a negative reference, right? Because there's a lot of litigation in this area. If an employee was terminated under negative circumstances, and although I'm not sure why they would give a reference for someplace where they were fired, but I suppose it could happen. A lot of employers are very hesitant to say anything negative. So you kind of have to take those references with a grain of salt. And a lot of employers nowadays will just give dates of hire and termination, and that's it. Like, they won't give an opinion on the work performance of an individual, because it does put them at risk. If that individual then doesn't get the job, they could come back and possibly sue for that bad reference, even if they deserved it, right? So as they mentioned here, it diminishes the credibility of any of those reference inquiries, but they're still done. Also, you run into the issue of employees who are out seeking a different job, but they don't want their current employer to know about it. It's awfully difficult then to allow that potential employer to speak to the current employer, because it could put them in a difficult situation, right? So those references, again, have to be taken with a grain of salt. I don't know if there's anything that I really need to say here. Oh, that stuff's just in the book, and you can read it. Okay. That said, any questions, comments, any personal experiences with HR departments, or being on the giving or receiving end? Has anybody ever worked for a company where there was a culture that did not encourage personal growth? That's a very political way of saying it. Yeah, I see some nods. Yeah, it's an uncomfortable position to be in, right? And human resources, although they're not 100% responsible for the workplace culture. Obviously, a lot of that comes right from the top, and from other employees. But they do have a role to play in trying to encourage a more positive workplace culture and allowing employees to know that they are valued and that their contributions are appreciated. It just makes a big difference, right, for in the work environment. Okay. So that said, I'm a little bit over in time, but I'll still give you time to do this. So within our schedule here, we've got this class activity. So I want you to choose one of the HR duties that were as outlined in the PowerPoint. And I can write them up here on the board too. Recruiting, selecting, orienting, or also known as inducting, training, and terminating personnel. I'm gonna write a few others up here as well. Choose one of those and answer the following questions. List 3 ways in which that duty affects the long-term health of a company. So, for example, recruiting. What are 3 ways that recruiting the right employees and how you recruit those employees can affect the company long term? You obviously want to do it in a way that's going to invite high quality applicants to apply for these positions. What are 3 ways that that would affect long-term health of the company? What might be some unintended consequences to the employer and employees if this duty is performed poorly or is not performed at all? So again, we could think about recruiting. If we don't recruit well, what's going to happen in the future? How is that going to affect the health of our company in the future? And then, are there any laws that were discussed in the chapter? So remember all those laws that we had, and I'll list some of the acronyms up here as a reminder as well, that impact the performance of this HR duty or responsibility. Okay? So I know you have to kind of put your thinking caps on with these and do a little bit of analysis. Any questions about those? Make sense? Okay. I'm gonna write, so in addition to I'll write all of these up here. Some of those duties. These were ones from the video as well. That was the list that I came up with here. And then some of the laws that we briefly talked about, and obviously you're not experts on these laws yet. maybe till about 12:25 or so. Think about those things.